up, Browns fans? Welcome to Browns Insider. My name is Dan Lomby, alongside co-host Dennis Manoloff. D-Man, how are you?
Great to see you, Dan.
Good to see you, and obviously sitting between us here, Mary Kay Cabot, our guest for today, who will be joining us regularly, and we're going to bring in Tony Grossi a little bit later. But before we do that, I want to tell you how you can get involved in the show. We've got a chat room open. You can jump in that. It's right below the player. You can fire away questions once we start talking to Tony. You can also tweet us. That's at c.com Browns. I'll be keeping an eye on that. And we're going to do some video and Skype questions later. I'll tell you how you can get involved in that for next week's show. But for right now, guys, let's go to Berea and Tony Grossi.
What's up, Tone?
Hi, I'm happy to be part of this historic launch.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's great to be amongst heavyweights. You and Mary Kay are the best there is. Tone, first, before we get into the regular season, just put a bow on training camp and the preseason. And just sum it up. What did you think of camp and the preseason?
Well, I thought the Browns training camp was a big surprise to me because I was really pleasantly surprised how ready the Browns were after this long off season of non-activity. With all the obstacles thrown in front of this coaching staff, I thought they did a terrific job of just, coaching them up and getting them looking better than I'd seen them the first 2 weeks of training camp in a long time.
Mary Kay, what about you? What did you think of camp?
Well, I was able to attend a couple of those camp Colts in the off season, and because of those, I think the offensive players looked so much more polished at camp than they would have. They've even said, I've talked to guys like Jordan Cameron, I would have been lost if I would have shown up there. Colt had the playbook. That really helped. So I really think that those guys got out there and they knew what they were doing.
Mary Kay, did you think the lockout affected the Browns adversely in any way, or have they overcome it?
Well, I don't think they've really overcome it. And one way they haven't overcome it is because of injuries. There's been so many hamstrings. I think that has a lot to do with the lockout, and so many other different little bumps and bruises. You cannot get in football shape by yourself. That has to happen out in training camp, and I think we're seeing some of that. And then also, yes, the lockout had a negative impact in that there's just no way that you can duplicate being coached in two new systems when your coaches aren't available.
Tone, both offense and defense new schemes. Who would you think is farther ahead, the offense and the defense right now for the Cleveland Browns?
Well, surprisingly enough, I think the offense got whipped into shape faster, and I attribute that partly to what Mary Kay said. Those off-season players-only camps. The defense can't do much in those camps other than backpedal and cover a couple of guys running out for passes. And I think it helped the offense a lot more. And McCoy should be credited for just preparing so hard for this new challenge and this new offense. And I think it's definitely showed. And I think the offense right now, as it showed in preseason, is a little stronger unit as they head into the season.
Tone, offense or defense, take your pick. Give me an under-the-radar player, a guy who hasn't been talked about much yet, who you think is going to have an impact on the 2011 Browns.
Well, I think I'm going to go way below radar here and point out the rookie cornerback Buster Screen as a guy who, at least in my mind, is surprising me how advanced he is as a cornerback, or he was in preseason and in training camp. Now, he's like the fourth cornerback, so in order for him to get on the field, teams are going to have to come out in 4 or 5 wide receiver sets, and I think we will see that throughout the season. And I think Buster Screen has impressed me. Came advertised as a speed-only guy, but is a real compact and a physical player, and I thought showed good ability in training camp and preseason.
Mary Kay, what about you? One player that you think is going to have an impact that we haven't really talked about yet?
Well, really under the radar, I think, has been Mike Adams. We've talked about a lot of different guys here and there, but Mike Adams has something to prove. He's stepping in there. Usama Young was supposed to come in and take over the free safety job. Mike Adams has been in there because Usama has the hamstring injury, and I think he's ready to show the world that he deserves this job. He's got great instincts around the ball, and I really think he's going to make a tremendous impact.
So a new old guy there, Mike Adams, maybe overlooked. Regarding Pat Shurmur, I love the Shermanator. He seems to be really, have every understanding of what he's doing. Do you feel concerned at all that he's wearing two hats, the offensive coordinator and the head coach?
No, and here's why. He did the best thing he could possibly do for himself in that he hired Dick Duran as his defensive coordinator. So he does not really have to worry about the defense whatsoever. He's surrounded by a very good and veteran staff. He's got experienced guys in Mark Whipple, Mike Wilson, helping him to run the offense. But I really applaud him for picking guys like Ray Rhodes, Dick Duran. He does not have to worry about things. I thought that was one of Eric Mangini's flaws, was that he did not have an experienced offensive coordinator and he had to worry too much about the big picture. I think Pat Shurmur can focus on the offense.
Tone, your thoughts on Shurmur overall as we head into the season?
I'm very impressed, and I'm really looking forward to seeing an offensive-minded head coach run the game on Sunday. Not only being in charge of play calls, but also those 3 or 4 just absolutely critical calls in a game. When to go for the first down, when to punt, when to kick a field goal. We're so used to seeing defensive coaches here in Cleveland. I think we're going to be, and we got a taste of it in preseason. I think the days of setting up 24-yard field goals are over, and we're going to see more touchdowns as a result of the aggressive play calling.
Tone, this question's from Ernie Kellerman. He asked, what's your view of the new defensive line?
Well, it's young, that's for sure. And there's a lot of fresh legs out there. You almost have 3 rookies. You have two rookies, and Phil Taylor and Jabal Shears. Of course, the left end, Jamie Mitchell, did not play a single down last year, although he's the most experienced of the 4 guys. To us, Mitchell is an unknown quantity. And, of course, the center of everything, one of my favorite players on the Browns is Tuba Rubin. I think he's a really underrated player who's going to come into his own this year. But as long as they stay healthy, you've got to figure that this unit of the front 4 will get better and better every month of the season.
But Tone, will they be able to stop the run? That's what everybody wants to know.
Yeah. Well, I think this 4-3 sets up a little better than what we're used to under the 3-4. And the key to stopping the run are going to be, I think, 3 individuals. Phil Taylor's impact up front, DeQuell Jackson's impact in the middle, and T.J. Ward. I think we're going to see a lot more of him in the box, up close to the line of scrimmage. And those 3 guys, I think, are going to improve the run defense between them.
Mary Kay, where do you think this team is most vulnerable, other than maybe against the run? Where do you think they have a weakness?
Well, I don't know if I would necessarily call it a weakness right now, but the area that I think a lot of people are looking at is wide receiver. Now, I personally think that they have plenty enough skill players on offense when you factor in the tight ends, the backs catching the ball out of the backfield. But I do think that everybody's kind of looking to the receiver group just to see what they do. And, Greg Little, there's going to be a few growing pains there, but I think fans are really going to end up embracing him and liking him. I think he's going to be really good this year.
Speaking of the receivers, Josh Cribbs, so much talk about him. He's almost the face of the franchise. Is he going to thrive in the Shurmur West Coast offense?
I think he's got potential to, because it requires a lot of yards after catch. And, Josh Cribbs, we know he'll try to run over anyone. So if they can find a way to get the ball in his hands, I do think that he will have that great feature about him, that he can make some yards after the catch. The problem is there's so many different places to go with the ball. You have to wonder how many times he's going to get the ball in his hands.
And he's got to stay healthy, too.
Right.
Because he always manages to take a beating. D-Lob, what do you think of Cribbsy?
It's a big year for Cribbs, honestly. I think the guy his development as a wide receiver has been a little slow. We saw some signs last year before he got hurt, but we're going to see if he can do it this year because he's got his opportunity. All right, I want to get to one more chat room question. Somebody going by the name Holmgren in the chat room. He wants to know, and I'll get all 3 of your thoughts on this. Mary Kay, we'll start with you. Of the Browns rookies, who do you think is most likely to be a bust?
Most likely to be a bust this year.
You have to ask that question. Right out of the gate.
Oh, that's a good question. Geez, oh man, I don't know. I can't think of anybody right off the top.
D-Man?
I refuse to answer that question on the grounds that I'm going to be optimistic about the Cleveland Browns heading into 2011, and I'm not going to allow that negative talk into this chat.
Tony, what about you?
Well, I'll play the bad cop then.
Okay.
I think simply because he was the first-round pick, the most potential for bust is with Phil Taylor, especially when you consider they traded 21 spots down, then moved up and gave up a third-round pick to move up and take him. So the expectations are there for Phil Taylor to be immensely impactful right off the bat. And if he isn't, he would qualify as at least a first-year bust. It doesn't mean he's a bust for his whole career. I don't see that happening, though. I've been impressed with him, but I think the potential is there more with Phil Taylor than anyone.
And Tone, do you think that the holdout has hurt Taylor at all, or we only might know that early in the season if he gets injured or something?
No, Dennis, I think that's ancient history, and it wasn't that long. From we saw much longer in the past. I think all systems are go for him to come out of the gate really strong.
He's going to be looking for you in the locker room today, Tony.
All right, let's go ahead and get to some.
I don't ask them.
Let's get to some more fan questions. These are actually submitted via video. Let's get to the first one.
Question on Montario Hardesty. Is he going to be healthy this year? It looks like his knee's been bothering him and doesn't look good. But what are their outcomes? If Montario Hardesty can't go, are they satisfied with what they have now?
Tony, let's start with you. I know last year, before his rookie year, before he got hurt, you had high expectations for Hardesty. What are your expectations for him this year?
Well, they're a little tempered now because he's in, just less than 12 months really since his ACL surgery, and I think everything's been. Once he's gotten in the games, he played 2 games. I think they're pleased with the way they've eased them in, and I think they've gotten those hits out of the way in preseason. We haven't seen a lot of yardage gain, but I don't think that was the mission for Montario Hardesty in the preseason. I think he's on to the next stage, which is just grab the ball and run with it, whereas before it was, will he get up after he gets hit? I think that's past.
Mary Kay, maybe the biggest question mark. What are your expectations for him?
Well, I think the thing to remember when a player is coming off of an ACL, their first year back is not their strongest year back. There's always, just getting back into it, getting back into, football, taking hits and things like that. But he looks very strong in practice. He looks great. He looks great in drills. And, he just shows no signs of tentativeness. And I think that's very important. You cannot play scared. So, I think that all signs are there that he's going to make it, through this season healthy. Everyone has to keep their fingers crossed because of his history.
All right, let's get to the next question.
Hey, I'm Mike from Parma, and I want to know, is there anyone on the Browns worth drafting in my fantasy league other than Peyton Hillis?
All right, D-Man, let's start with you. Talking fantasy football, the Browns, it seems every year there really isn't a Brown worth taking. This guy wants to know who's worth taking. The guy's not named Peyton Hillis.
Yeah, I'm in 3 fantasy leagues, and my first Brown pick was Peyton Hillis. I also wound up drafting Colt McCoy because I think he's going to have a decent year, and he's a later round pick. And I also like Cribbs, so I picked Cribbs in 2 of my leagues. So I would say McCoy and Cribbs after Hillis.
Tony, do you have any Browns fantasy advice?
Well, I would throw in Evan Moore there. I know tight ends might not be valued in fantasy football as in real football, but I think Evan Moore is poised to score at least a half a dozen touchdowns for the Browns this year.
Mary Kay?
I think everyone should keep an eye on Greg Little. I think they're going to look for him in the red zone. And, he's a big, tall target, real big guy, too. And I just think that he's starting to develop some nice chemistry with Colt.
Okay, let's get to our next question.
Hey, it's Elliot from Cleveland. My question is, what do you think the Browns' record will be heading into our bye week, week 5?
Our record heading into the bye week, Mary Kay.
When you look at these first 4 games, there is not a game on here that they cannot win. You are looking at the Bengals without Carson Palmer. You're looking at the Colts without Peyton Manning. Jim Irsay just tweeted this morning that he's going to be out for a while. We did know that. And then I think the Dolphins and the Titans, those are also winnable games.
Check.
So I wouldn't be shocked if they started out 4-0, but in the interest of tempering the enthusiasm a little, I'm going to say 3-1.
You're absolutely right, Mary Kay. Why can't the Browns be 4-0? I don't understand this. I mean, yes, going to Indy week 2, regardless of no Manning, is going to be tough. You know, any road game is tough, and Indy's good. I mean, they're still good. But I don't see why they can't handle the Bengals, steal one in Indy, and come back and play a couple of, garbage teams. Come on, Tom.
At home.
Help me out here.
Well, we were doing the same sort of thing a year ago, penciling in Tampa Bay and Kansas City, and look what happened. I think the first game is enormous. I think they have to get the momentum of a 1-0 start. I think it means a lot. And I'll just say if they win that first game, and I don't think it's a pushover, but if they win the first game Sunday, 3-1 is definitely doable.
Tony, I want to follow up with that. We talked about last year in Tampa Bay. That turned out to be a better team than we thought they'd be last year. Do you think that's the case with Cincinnati, or is there good reason for optimism at least?
Well, I will add that Kansas City did the same thing. Kansas City turned out to be that team in the AFC last year. Had the Browns won both of those games, they would have been that team. So the same thing can happen in week 1. Whoever wins that game can go on and be that team in the AFC that everyone had low expectations for. So that's why I think the first couple games are so important. They really, especially to a young team like Cleveland, like Tampa was last year, and Kansas City, you pull out 2 quick wins right off the bat, and it does wonders for your development.
Tone, if Shermer's the head coach, the Browns win the Tampa game and they win the Kansas City game. I'm convinced.
And in the chat room, there is some optimism, except for a guy named Cowboy Nemo. He's saying 1-4 after 5 games. Guys,
well,
come on now.
You have to be 1-3, right?
It's before we started the season.
So he's having them lose in the bye?
Let's have some hope out there in the chat room. All right, let's go to a segment that we like to call True or False. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw out one statement. We're going to go around, and I want you guys to tell me, is it true, is it false, and give me real quick, one sentence, why you think so. Mary Kay, we'll start with you. Looking big picture, when you look at the Browns and the Bengals, the Browns will win an AFC North title before the Bengals do.
I would say that is true. And the reason why I say that is because I've never seen anyone more determined or more driven than Colt McCoy. And I think they're surrounding him with good talent. I think he's ahead of Andy Dalton, and I think they'll win it first.
D-Man?
The Browns for any number of reasons, beginning with Holmgren, Heckert, Shermer. The Browns are so much better off with those 3 guys than what the Bengals have to offer.
Tony, true or false, the Browns get an AFC North title before the Bengals?
I would say true. But with everyone, dumps on the Bengals, I think they got a lot of talent on defense, so it's closer than most people think.
All right, let's go to the next one. Greg Little will be the Browns' top receiver by the bye week, Tony. True or false?
I've come around on Greg Little, and I'll say true on that one. I think he's going to be dynamic inside the end zone and the red zone.
I'm sticking with my man Cribbsy. I'm just convinced that the West Coast offense is what Josh Cribbs needs to thrive. So I will say Cribbs.
Very good.
Right now I'm going to say false on Greg Little, and if I had to pick someone, I think I would almost still maybe go with a Ben Watson.
Now let's talk about that rookie quarterback from the Bengals, Andy Dalton. He's going up against that Browns secondary. I think a lot of fans at least think that's the strength of this defense is the secondary. What do you expect to see the rookie do against that Browns back four?
Well, I think it can be a tough afternoon for him. I really think that Sheldon Brown is back from a shoulder injury, and he looks really, really strong and good. I think Joe Hayden is ready to just go lights out this season. So it's not like you can avoid one of those guys. And then T.J. Ward, of course, we've talked about him. I think it is a very strong secondary, and Mike Adams, don't count him out. I see him getting his hands on an interception this week.
D-Man, the rookie against that Browns secondary?
He's going to have a lot of problems because, look, I'm not trying to be Mr. Brown's homer and all that stuff, but Dick Duran is going to have all kinds of stuff cooked up for Dalton. Rookie quarterbacks going on the road in week one, it's tough enough. all right? And then you got to run up against the Wizard, Dick Duran, and a very hungry defense that has a year under its belt for the most part. And Dalton's going to have to deal with the PT Bruiser, which is not going to be easy.
As you were talking about that, Dennis, I'm thinking about Colt McCoy going on the road into Pittsburgh for his first start, playing against Dick LeBeau, James Harrison.
Why are you doing this to me, Mary Kay? That is actually, when I researched and I looked over the last few years, McCoy had one of the best rookie debuts, all things considered, by a quarterback. But for the most part, they struggle. And you're right, though. I mean, to give McCoy his props in that game when most people thought he was going to fall on his face, you have to. But I don't know. The Bengals don't do anything for me. So I'm not in the least. If I'm Dalton, I'm nervous.
Well, he's got A.J. Green, and I think that that will definitely help him. And I think there's a very interesting matchup, of course, between A.J. Green and Joe Hayden. Absolutely something to watch. But I was just kidding around about that. Nobody goes into Pittsburgh against the #1 defense in Blitzburg and does anything like that. And we asked Andy Dalton yesterday, did Colt set the bar pretty high? And he said absolutely yes.
All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show now. I want to thank Dennis Manoloff for co-hosting, Mary Kay Cabot for stopping by, and of course Tony Grossi joining us from Berea via Skype. We really appreciate it. Now, next week we'll do this again at 10 o'clock. You can get in the chat room. We're also going to put a post up on cleveland.com/Browns next week that'll give you the chance to submit your Skype questions like you saw earlier, or upload video questions that we'll pass along to Tony, Mary Kay, whoever else we have on with us. Until then, guys, thanks for joining us. D-Man, Mary Kay, Tony, I'm Dan Lobby. Talk to you next week.